your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast with Tony Marinaro.
55 seconds left in the penalty, a minute and 27 seconds left in regulation time. Boston 4, Montreal 3. Lafleur coming out rather gingerly on the right side. He gives it into Lemaire, back to Lafleur.
The sickest Montreal Canadiens podcast.
You're in the ball!
Sports entertainment like no other.
Rejoint, on lui fait perdre la rondelle, une passe devant. Et c'est le dégagement et ce sera la victoire des Canadiens. Stanley pour les Canadiens, le 23e de l'histoire.
You found the dogs! John, you found the dogs! He found the dogs! And all together, they worked a young team to the top. And now, a 24th Stanley Cup banner will hang from the rafters of the famous Forum in Montreal. The Canadiens win the Stanley Cup.
Brought to you by Energy Transportation Group. Driven to be different. 8.6 beer. Intense by nature. And Locage. If the last time you went to Locage was when the Habs won the Cup, it's time you went back to Locage. It's gonna be sick.
Marinaro, the Sick Podcast on this Wednesday, November 16th. Let me get my bottle out of the way here. There we go. Let's do that. It is a minute past 10 p.m. and the Sick Podcast brought to you in part by Energy Transportation Group. Join a growing team and energize your career at Energy Transportation Group. Email sick@shipenergy.com or check out their website, www.shipenergy.com, and click on the career tab to discover your next career opportunity. They have a young team. They have a dynamic team. They have a great team. I've been there several times. That's the kind of team that you want to be part of. That's a winning team. That's a winning team. They've figured it out. They got the formula. All right, okay. Marc-André Perreault is our regular collaborator, usually on Wednesdays, and he's going to join us momentarily. And since the Montreal Canadiens are taking on the Blue Jackets in Columbus tomorrow night, I'm going to go to Aaron Portzline of The Athletic a little bit later on in the podcast. He's going to join us as well. A lot of talk in Ottawa as to whether or not the Ottawa Senators are going to let go of their coach. Well, it's probably not going to happen tonight because they were victorious by a score of 4-1 over the Buffalo Sabres. So DJ Smith lives to see another day in Ottawa. You would think, mind you, I think I've seen coaches be relieved of their duties following a win. I think I've seen that. Now, I could be wrong, but I believe Guy Carbonneau won his last game coaching the Canadiens, and then he was relieved of his duties. I could be wrong, by the way. I could be wrong, but I believe Guy Carbonneau won his last game and was relieved of his duties anyway. But anyway, what's with the bling? Someone just got paid off. No, I actually picked this up at Bijouterie Bassi. I went to see my friend Jenny Dioris, and you know, I'm a pretty religious guy, and you know, I pray and stuff like that, and decided to go out and get myself a cross, and I did, and I love it, and I hadn't realized that it was out there, but I'm going to. There we go. But that's it. That's the story. All right. Okay. So Agnello and Sammy are going to let me know when Marc-André Perreault is going to join us. It doesn't look like he's on yet. We had a very interesting show, to say the least, with George Larac. And the beauty of a live podcast is you can expect the unexpected. And, you know, that wasn't more true than last night when George was in a hotel room in Gatineau, and he wasn't wearing a shirt, and he was lying down on a bed, and he was lying down on top of a pillow. And I don't know if he was wearing anything at all. And I'm too afraid to ask. And part of me, I don't really know. But yesterday I was somewhat rattled, to tell you the truth. I really did not expect George to come on that way, but George is a funny guy, and he made me laugh last night. You know, he really, really made me laugh, because at one point, I mean, you saw it, you were there. It looked like George was moving. It looked like the bed was moving. It looked like the pillow was moving. And, I'm pretty immature that way. So that was the story. We'll get to all your messages. And I see that we have a nice crowd already on YouTube. The crowd, by the way, on Monday night was absolutely unbelievable. Thank you so much for your support. But the crowd every night here is pretty unbelievable. It's a very active crowd. It's a crowd that likes to type and likes to chat and stuff like that. And every now and then I get in a few words myself. Last night was very funny. Tony Marinaro says Thunder Gods. Thank you. Darth says sick. Futures says sick. Josh Schenker says Tony. And Vince says that I saw his buddy. Hey, Tony, you saw my buddy Steve at Costco Marché Central earlier this morning. Yes, I did. As a matter of fact, right after I saw Jenny in Saint Michel, my wife and I, we went to Costco. And, we went to pick up a few things. And I saw a gentleman when I was at the cash, and he said, I listen to you all the time and I watch you all the time and stuff like that. I said, thank you very much. He said, his name is Steve. And he says, can we take a picture? And I said, of course we can. He said, sorry to bother you. I said, are you kidding me or what? This is the biggest honor you could be giving me, asking me to take a picture. So I was very, very happy to do that, as I always am. So hello to Steve, if you're watching tonight, and hello to your buddy Vinny, who is the one actually texting here. Salut, sick Tony. Great émission aujourd'hui avec Jean-Charles Lajoie at BPM Sport. Yes, thank you very much. For those of you who are not aware, I am a collaborator on BPM Sports Radio, 91.9 FM in Montreal on your FM dial, on Jean-Charles Lajoie's show called Premier Compteur, which starts at 6 a.m. and ends at 9 a.m. Eastern. And I'm on Monday to Friday, give or take, at around 8:05. And I'm also on Jean-Charles' television show, JC, at TVA Sport, which starts at 5 p.m. And ends at 7 p.m. I'm on Monday to Thursday, give or take, at around 5:30 p.m. So that's my radio schedule. That's my TV schedule. You know the podcast schedule here. And that, of course, is the Sick Podcast goes Monday to Friday starting at 10 p.m. I go Monday to Thursday, and my buddy Matt O'Han goes on Friday. Tony, you almost gave me a heart attack last night. All right, okay. Sorry, didn't want to do that. Gianni Jr. Potesta says, when are we getting an interview with Marty St. Louis or Kent Hughes? I don't know. Hopefully soon. But I'm pretty certain that I could have spoken with either Marty St. Louis or Kent Hughes on Monday. And I went with Jeff Gordon. He doesn't do that many interviews. We don't hear from him a lot. Obviously, his French he's learning, but he's not fluent enough to carry on a conversation just yet. So for those reasons, you see Kent Hughes interviewed a lot more, and Marty St. Louis obviously is interviewed every day. And I thought that Jeff Gordon would have been the best option for Monday night. I thought he was a fantastic guest. And you know what? Open invitation for him anytime. But the Canadiens were awesome with their collaboration on Monday night. So we thank them. And needless to say, there was a buzz with that conversation with Jeff Gordon, right? A lot of people were talking about it in a good way. He's very likable guy, Jeff Gordon. I'm telling you, he really impressed me in that introductory press conference when he made everyone laugh. When he said, yeah, I've heard of Patrick Roy, very, very analytical, very businesslike, comes across as a really, really good listener. He'll never put his foot in his mouth. He always thinks before he says something. At the same time, he's pretty genuine. You get the feeling he's always telling you the truth. And if there's something he can't tell you, he just won't tell you. And just my kind of guy. Stéphane Gaudreau, Tony is the best. We want you to have a show at BPM Sport, your own show. Well, right now I'm pretty busy with what I'm doing, and I'm pretty happy. And they have their own radio hosts, and I think they're all doing a very good job. But thank you for that. I appreciate that. Kelly says, Tony, love the show. I'm a new sub from the other day. I'm not so sure I get it, but maybe you can enlighten me. I'm a new sub from the other day. What does that mean exactly? Boo. Pierre, look, yes, Jeff Gordon is an impressive man. There are a few in the sports business. All right. Without further ado, I just got a text message from my buddy, Agnello Cavallaro, who's back at Master Control, and he tells me that my buddy, Marc-André Perreault, is on. Mapper, what's going on?
How are you, my friend?
I'm very good. How are you?
Life is pretty good in Columbus. It's a place where you can have some rest. So
there's not much to do.
Well, there's always, if you really want,
Mm-hmm.
you can always, even in Buffalo or Winnipeg, but no, here it's pretty quiet. It's Wednesday, you know.
Yeah. Do you know Columbus pretty well?
Yeah, seriously, it's a very nice city.
Is that right?
Nice neighborhood. It's close to the Ohio State University. It's a great rink. Nice city. It's underrated for sure.
All right. Well, if you have some good spots to check out, maybe you can jot them down and you can share that information with Wilfred Nancy, because I wouldn't be surprised if the Seattle Montreal coach actually ends up there coaching the Columbus Crew. It is the Sick Podcast, brought to you in part by 8.6 Beer, intense by nature, the beer for those who follow their instinct and live their passions in order to make their mark. Hey, by any chance, I know you were working last night, but did you have a chance to see some footage from last night's podcast?
I did not. Sorry, I'll just put.
No.
I just saw my hair is a mess. So I'll just.
No, your hair is not a mess.
Yeah.
No, your hair is not a mess.
I feel better now.
Well, listen, if you feel better with your hat, but by all means, go for it.
Yeah.
So George Larac last
night.
Are
you talking about? He was naked.
He was in a hotel room like you. He was in Gatineau. Yeah. You're in Columbus. You're sitting down on a chair. He was lying down on a bed. He was lying down on a pillow on the bed. He did not have a shirt, and I don't know if he whatever, but it was.
Well, you said naked. Well, I don't know what's naked for you, but
well, yeah, it's a first. I mean, I did not expect that, and I don't think we're ever going to see that again. At least I hope.
Well. If it's a subtle way to ask me to go naked, it's gonna be a no. I'm shy. I'm camera shy.
Yeah, no, I like you, but you're not my type. All right, let's move on before I get an upset stomach here, or about to throw up my water. Okay, a good one though, eh? Very, very good one. Last night, I thought it was, and I talked about this earlier today on radio and on television. I thought it was a good loss. And I'll explain. I thought it was an interesting loss. It was a good loss. Not that, I'm sure Marty St. Louis didn't like the loss too much, because they lost very convincingly by a score of 5-1. I looked at it as a good loss in the sense that I think it gave us a chance to all look into the future, because I think a couple of years from now, the Montreal Canadiens are going to look and they're going to play the way the New Jersey Devils did last night. The aggressor, pushing the pace, all kinds of speed up and down their lineup, all kinds of skill, tremendous depth at the center ice position. And look, they built through the draft with Nicky Hischier drafted number 1 overall, with Jack Hughes drafted number 1 overall. They got a great draft pick in Dawson Mercer, who was anywhere between 15 and 20, I believe, and he's playing on the wing. They made a couple of great trades by bringing in Vitek Vanacek. They've been another great trade by bringing in John Marino. And this team, great acquisition, Jesper Bratt. And this team is going to be really good. They have Luke Hughes, who's going to be a first pairing defenseman who will be on this team next year. They have, he went 4th overall in the draft. They have Simon Nemec, who went 2nd overall after the Canadiens drafted Slavkowski. You'd have to think he'll be a regular on this team next year. You have Alexander Holtz. I saw him last year with Utica, scored 26 goals in 52 games for them. The Devils are going to be really good, and I think the Canadiens are starting to look that way, but the Devils have a little bit more experience. They're further along in the process. That's it, right?
Well, they're 1 year older in the process, but Marty St. Louis didn't look too upset to me today. And by the way, Martin Brodeur, I think it was on BPM, said that pretty much they had Slavkovsky first as well. So I thought it was pretty interesting. But yes, the Devils are far from being the boring Devils they were. And I mean, you have to give credit to Lindy Ruff. I mean, the guy has been there for like a century in the league. And I don't know if you heard his comments. I add to my resume making like Lindy Ruff smile. I made Dean Evason smile, which was pretty good as well. But Lindy Ruff, he has soft. Just to put you in the situation, I asked, since you've been in the league, like it was 93, 94 or something like that, have you softened? And that was not the right wording. It was more compassionate. But he said, yes, you have to evolve as a coach. And yes, he is more listening to his players, compassionate about them. And it works. And the funny thing is that, I don't know if you remember, but game number 2, the fans in New Jersey were, "Fire Lindy." That was the chant. And then 3 games ago or 2 games ago, it was "Sorry, Lindy."
Wow.
Have you ever? I mean,
Mapper. Lindy Ruff, by the way, one of the best nicknames in the history of the National Hockey League, and you probably know it, right? You know it?
I do not.
Okay, so je vais t'apprendre quelque chose à soir. You're going to learn something from me, right?
Again,
you're going to love this one. Are you ready? Don't bring it up to him though, because I think he'll get mad the next time you see him.
Probably not.
Here goes. Yeah. Lindy Ruff. Ruff at home, Lindy on the road.
What does that mean in French?
It kind of means rough at home. Like on home ice, he's a tough guy. But when they went to play on the road, he was more of a Linda than he was.
Oh, yeah?
You're rough. You know what I mean? Like he was, Lindy Ruff, nice. Rough at home, Lindy on the road.
Is it a true story or?
No, well, that's what they used to call him. But I mean, I still wouldn't mess with him.
Funny. Never heard that. Yeah, no, I would not. No, he's. No. I mean, he looks like a tough customer, but
and he looks like when the wires touch, look out.
It's that generation that they didn't care about open fighting.
Yeah,
you don't see that often anymore. We saw that last week. Was it Delaurier against Olivier, that guy in Columbus?
Yeah,
and they had an open fight, but you don't see that often because, I mean, you can get hurt pretty bad. I don't know why. And back in the days, were they tougher or what? Or the punch were not that hard, but it was not the same ball game. But Bob, anyways,
the late Bob Probert was really something. It's a sick podcast brought to you in part by Lacage. If the last time you went to Lacage was when the Habs won the Cup, it's time you go back to Lacage. The menu will surprise you. I'm going to tell you something. I learned something too today. Someone brought up a point to me that made me open my eyes, and I said, "Oh my God, this is a great point." When you just said a lot of credit goes to Lindy Ruff, when I went to bed last night, I said, wow, a lot of credit goes to Lindy Ruff. Look at the way he turned the Devils around in 1 year. Today, in studio at TVA Sport, while we were off air, I ran into the Tigre, Michel Bergeron. So as soon as I saw him, I said to Bergie, I said, wow, les Devils, huh? Wow. And he looked at me and he said, faut donner beaucoup de crédit à Andrew Brunette. And I looked at him. What? He goes, Andrew Brunette was the head coach of the Florida Panthers last year, and he was relieved of his duties, and Lindy Ruff went to go get him to make him his assistant, and Andrew Brunette has the New Jersey Devils playing the exact same way that the Florida Panthers used to play last year. It's the same kind of system. It's the same kind of forecheck. And I looked at him and I'm like, yeah, that's why this guy was a coach in the National Hockey League and I wasn't, right? Because he got it and it hadn't hit me. And I think that's a very good point.
Of course. And actually, when the people were chanting Fire Lindy, they wanted Andrew Brunette. So, and again, you have to give credit to Lindy Ruff, who doesn't he's not scared of bringing a guy who could like basically steal his job because he could do it. So I respect that. But we talked about fighting, and I had a conversation with Michael Pezzetta. Do you know what happened 1 year ago exactly today? Michael
1 year,
Pezzetta.
was it Pezzetta and Cashin or?
Pezzetta and Ryan Reeves, Madison Square Garden.
Oh yeah, Pezzetta and Ryan Reeves. Yeah, but it wasn't much of a fight, eh?
It wasn't much of a fight, but it was a turning point for Michael Pezzetta, I think. I mean, the guy showed that he was willing to do anything he could possibly do to be there for his teammate and then play in the National Hockey League. And it was funny when he told me this story, because he said, you know what, nothing that happened was supposed to happen like that, because he had his plan in his head, right? Because he wanted to make a statement, and he knew he was going to face Ryan Reeves, and he was like, I knew I wanted it, but I thought it was just, I mean, the best scenario was it's a hit, and then we fight, and then I can, grab him, and
yeah,
didn't happen like that, because it was a tap on the shin pads, and then he said, I thought Ryan Reeves would be looking at me like, hey, who the hell do you think you are? But no, he dropped. So mistake number one, he had the chance to take his time, square off, and do his thing, and like pretty much center ice. So he's like, okay, so I know I'm in big trouble. So I go at him. I'm trying to get my grab. I miss him. So now my grab is here. You don't want that. You want your grab like here or here. So it's here. And he's like, okay, now I'm in big trouble. So I'm going to try to survive. So, and you see the fight, how it goes. But he said, if this fight gave me a 1% advantage, like to get a new contract, I would do it in a heartbeat again. And he won so much respect from his teammates, but around the league. He told me, like, guys were coming at the face-off and saying, hey, man, congrats. I mean, that I respect you now. And so, anyways, I thought it was a funny, yeah. He said for the next weeks, guys would come at him on the face-off and say, hey, respect, man. And yeah. So
speaking of congratulations are in order for Kovacevic, where our buddy Arpin Basu tells us via The Athletic that the Montreal Canadiens over the past couple of days told him, you can find a home in Montreal. Yeah. I don't think there was ever any doubt.
What a story.
Well, I don't think there was any doubt watching the way he's played. But yeah, when the Canadiens picked him up off of waivers, a lot of people said, who is this guy? And is it really going to work out? Mapper, it's worked out.
Yeah. It did. It did. That's a bad news for Chris Weidman, I guess. But it's a great story. He's a great guy, like very calm, very low profile, got his first point. And I know that he played with a chip on his shoulder, because he took it personal. I mean, obviously when the Jets put him on the waivers, because you take a look at the D squad in Winnipeg, it's not the Nashville Predator in the 2017. So he took it personally, and now he is doing so much good things. We always say, like, hey, Jordan Harris is having a great start of the season, but his partner is doing like pretty well. And by the way, do you know that his I don't know, you see hero, son idol, his idol, back in the days was Patty Lalime. Yeah, Patty Lalime. Back in the days.
Yeah, there was at one point. We saw the cameras in the locker room, and they showed Kovacevic and Patrick Lalime shaking hands, and it was like, why? Like, what's going on here? And then you told me that Pat Lalime was his idol, and it just didn't make sense to me. I'm like, well, what's going on here?
That's because of that. I don't know what you call it, that character, cartoon character on Patty's helmet. So yeah, it's a funny story. But anyways, Kovacevic is. By the way, right now he is
the Jets' defense though is I know you said it's not as deep as Nashville's. It's not bad, eh? It's not bad.
it's not bad right now.
The Mapper. They have Morrissey.
Morrissey is good. They have that Stanley guy.
They have Pionk. Neil Pionk. They got Dylan DeMello.
Yep.
They got Nate Schmidt. They got Dylan.
Logan Stanley is pretty good.
They're
big
not
guy.
They're not bad. They're not bad.
Yeah, but I mean, Nate Schmidt in Vancouver didn't work at all. Dylan DeMello couldn't make it in Ottawa.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, I'm not disrespecting.
No, I
those
know.
guys,
Marty St. Louis didn't work out in Calgary either. There's guys that they don't work out in some places, you know?
Yeah, of course. Well, Paul Byron, Kovacevic, these guys. But I mean, point is, he had some good seasons in the American Hockey League. I think it was normal for him to expect a real chance in Winnipeg. It didn't come. I mean, he's claimed on the waivers here. He has a spot, and he's on the top 6 right now. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah. Let me throw something at you.
Yeah.
Let's say Mike Matheson returns on Saturday. A, if they play 6, who comes out? B, would you consider playing 7D?
I would consider for sure.
So would I. And I'm going to take it a step further. Yeah. Who's going to get traded at the deadline or the week or two leading up to the deadline? Who's going to get traded?
At the deadline?
Forwards, right?
Forwards? Well, I mean, it obviously
Dadonov, Drouin.
If someone wants him, if someone wants them, yes.
Yes.
Anderson.
Okay.
If someone wants them.
How do you maximize their value? How do you maximize a forward's value?
Well, you put him on good spots to get some points.
Perfect. And if you can't put him on good spots because you have 4 lines and you say, I can't see him playing with the players on the first line. If you play 7D and you play 11 forwards, Dadonov might end up getting a shift with Suzuki and Caulfield. Drouin, when he comes back and he's out 4 to 6 weeks, might end up getting a shift with Suzuki and Caulfield.
Not gonna happen.
Josh Anderson might end up getting a shift with Suzuki and Caulfield.
They tried
Sean Monahan might end up getting a shift with Suzuki and Caulfield.
They tried him and didn't. Well, it worked, but I mean, there was a hole somewhere else. You're not gonna touch Caulfield, Suzuki, and Duck until it doesn't work anymore. But so far, why would you even think of touching that line? It's not because you go 11-7 that you're gonna mess your first line.
I understand that.
I won't touch that. I mean,
I also think it's a good idea to go 7D because you can some guys have been overworked a little bit, so you can bring their minutes down. And if you give some guys too much, they probably get exposed a little bit. I think it'll be comfortable for everyone.
Who's been overworked so far?
Well, David Savard's got a lot of minutes, I think, so far this year for a guy who's 32 years old. If you continue giving him all these minutes, right? But you can bring Savard down a little bit. You can bring Edmondson down a little bit. And the young guys, you can find better. Like, for example, let's just say they stay 6D, okay? And Matheson comes in on Saturday. You might have to take Jack Guy out of the lineup. And if you're not going to take Jack Guy out of the lineup, you might have to take Jordan Harris out of the lineup. And Jack Guy probably has an advantage in one regard because he's better at right D than Jordan Harris is.
You're not going to take Jordan Harris out of the lineup. I don't think so. I mean, okay. I think Kovacevic would be maybe the first guy on the list, or Jack Guy. I don't know.
Kovacevic can play left and right.
So does Jack Guy.
Yeah, and Jordan Harris does not look good on the right side of defense.
You're right, but I think he could. He can, but it's a tough question. But I don't think you want to take Jordan Harris out of the lineup. No, that's a good question. But
yeah,
going 11-7. By the way, just important information. Jonathan Drouin, it is not the wrist. It
It's
is
not the
not.
wrist. Okay. All right. Upper body
No.
injury, we were told, sustained in
Yeah,
the game versus Vegas back on November 5th. It's not his wrist.
it is not, and that's important because it would be his former injury. So I thought it was important to tell you, my friend.
I don't remember when was the last time a Montreal Canadian was injured as often as Jonathan.
Well, Joel Manson was hurt pretty often lately.
Yeah, but I mean, Jonathan, it's one wrist, and then it's the other wrist, and then it's the upper body, and then it's just, it seems like it's one. I mean, if this guy didn't have any bad, if he didn't have bad luck, he wouldn't have any luck at all, man. But it's been a real tough couple of years for him. Hey, did you have a chance to see my chat with Jeff Gordon on Monday night?
Yeah, of course. Well, yeah.
Okay,
I mean
thank you.
that when you talked about Caulfield, that was, I mean, I love the way how much confident he looked talking about Caulfield, and it's pretty much a done deal. And
Yeah.
you were good.
Well,
You're good at your job.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And so are you. And that's why I have this podcast, and that's why you're a collaborator on it.
Stop it.
Okay. No, the reason why I bring it up, and thank you for that, by the way, I appreciate that. The reason it always means a lot when people say it, and it means a little bit something more when it comes from someone in the business with a lot of experience. So thank you. But he said something that surprised a lot of people, because I talked to him about Kaiden Guhle and the great job that he did versus Sidney Crosby and Austin Matthews and Alexander Ovechkin this season. And I said, the kid's making a name for himself. And he said, I got a lot of friends around the league, and Kent has a lot of friends around the league. And when we either see them or get calls from them, the first thing they say to us is, how about that Ghouli kid?
Yeah.
Like, isn't that something, knowing the Canadians have Suzuki, knowing the Canadians have Caulfield, and maybe, they don't say it for Suzuki or Caulfield because they're not new. They've been here a couple of years, and in Suzuki's case, several years. But
yeah,
the fact that people around the league are, talking about Ghouli and asking about Ghouli, and Jeff Gordon tells us that's pretty cool and good for Ghouli, right?
He's a horse. He's got the perfect attitude. And I asked, I don't want to say like, I talked with the Bear, André Tourigny, about that draft, okay? And I asked him, are you sure that if we would redo the draft, Kaiden Guhle would be at the same spot? He was drafted 16 in 2020, and he dropped names, and Lafrenière, Byfield, and Marco Rossi. He's in love with Marco Rossi, obviously coached him in Ottawa, and
yes,
he said, well,
yes.
what? Yeah, he said 16 is pretty accurate right now, but I don't think that's right. And trust me, I mean, André Tourigny knows like way more to hockey than me, but we're talking about a guy who's going to play like for the next 10 to 15 years. And he's just great. He's just playing like a veteran right now. And you said that Gordon and Hughes are receiving phone calls. Everybody's talking about Kaiden Guhle, how good he is. And again, I was talking about Kovacevic making Jordan Harris look good. David Savard is having a big word in that. But you look at Kaiden Guhle, he's going to have to protect himself a little better, because sometimes he put his body in a tough situation, and he's getting hit and getting out of the play.
Yeah.
But he is so good, so calm. For me, I look at the draft right now, and you know what? I think in a few years we're gonna say it's too late. 16.
Mapper, interesting conversation that we're having here, because I pulled up the draft right now, and you may very well be right. But that was a very good. It was a very deep draft. Lafrenière, Byfield, Stützle, Raymond, Jake Sanderson, Jamie Drysdale, Alexander Holtz, Jack Quinn, Marco Rossi, Cole Perfetti, Yaroslav Askarov, Anton Lundell, Seth Jarvis, Dylan Holloway, Rodion Amirov, Kaiden Guhle. And then a couple of picks after Kaiden Guhle, Dawson Mercer of the New Jersey Devils. So I'll say this. I think if you had to redo it right now, right out of the way, you can put him ahead of Askarov and Amirov, who haven't played a game. Right? I think right away you can do that.
Yes. I think you have to put it in front of Marco Rossi.
You got to put him in front of Dylan Holloway. He's in front of Dylan Holloway.
Yes. Lundell is doing pretty well.
He's contributed better than Jack Quinn, but I think Jack Quinn could end up being a 30-plus goal scorer in this league. So I'm not going to go too far on that one. But so far, he's contributed to his team a lot more than Quinn has contributed to Buffalo, a lot more than Holtz has contributed to the New Jersey Devils.
Rossi.
A lot more than Rossi's contributed to the Minnesota Wild.
Yeah. What we're talking about a number one defenseman. That's pretty big. I mean, right now, I keep an eye on Logan Mailloux. I've been told that his upside is offensive game. He could be number one, but I mean, we can debate what is number one, what is number two, but let's come back to Kaiden Guhle. You have like number one material. So we're talking about names. I mean, these guys will have to be very good to, be better than the number one defenseman in the National Hockey League. So, but anyways, the point is that he is just doing great. And I'm a fan of sending the young kids in the American Hockey League to start their career to see like big minutes and different situation. I was a fan of that for Kaiden Guhle. After 5 games, I said to myself, you don't know nothing about hockey. Kaiden Guhle belong in the National Hockey League big time.
All right. We are expecting Aaron Portzline of The Athletic, who should join us in about a minute or two. I want to let you know that the equipment that I'm using here on the Sick Podcast, of course, the Sick Podcast with Tony Marinaro's Tascam equipment is supplied by Ericsson Audio, the choice of musicians, engineers, and broadcast professionals. Pitlick recalled. Thoughts?
Who?
Rem Pitlick.
I didn't know you. Yeah, Rem Pitlick. Yeah, well, this guy was pretty good back in his junior years, like scoring goals. It was his 3rd time on the waivers, which is never a good news. He's a guy who last year could play anywhere, even on the power play, PK, first line, third line, whatever. He has to be more consistent. And I think he is a very good hockey player. He could very well fit on the 4th line for lots of years on the Montreal Canadiens, but it's all about consistency. And that's the problem of a lot of, well, pretty much like 90% of the players, but that's the key for him. He's a great guy, very respectful, very generous with the media. He's a good hockey player, but he has to find his spot and, making like impossible for Marty St. Louis to take him out of the lineup.
Yeah, they're hoping putting him on waivers is going to be a wake-up call for him. That's what they're hoping, right? They tried to get to his pride a little bit. And look, if he plays the way he played last year, the guy was really good.
But it's the 3rd
really
time.
Good.
It's the 3rd time on the waivers. So what are you expecting different than the first 2 times? But last year was very good. I don't know what happened. Sometimes it's just a matter of, confidence. It has to click. Hopefully for him, he's going to have a shot tomorrow. I don't know. But he's going to have to show a lot more. But I think he can do, because he's a very good hockey player. You remember when Montreal claimed him from Minnesota? Like people were talking about as a a steal and was a mistake from Minnesota, who had too many contracts, but blah blah blah. But he has to prove it right now.
Dadonov, a goal for him. He's hoping the monkey off his back. Yesterday I could tell early on in the game that I don't know about you, I just kind of like thought he was going to score. Like he had more jump to his game yesterday.
Same as the last two games. I thought he played well. He's not playing bad. Sometimes his decision making, at some point, I can't remember. I think it was with Henderson, not sure, but they are on a 2-on-1, and then he slows down so much that like two other players have time to make their back check. So sometimes the decision making, I don't know. He's playing all right, but again, you don't have time on the power play. You don't have time on the PK. You have to do something somewhere else. And one goal in 11, 12 games, 13 games is not enough for him. So he's gonna have to
call me stupid or call me naive, but I think this guy's gonna get picked up before the deadline or on deadline day, because he can't possibly play worse hockey than what he did at the beginning of the season. He can only play better hockey. And I maintain, Dadonov's not a problem player. Okay. He hasn't given the Canadiens problems. There was a conversation there with Kent Hughes because he wasn't happy, but he hasn't given them problems. And, at the end of the day, a team is going to have to pay two, they're gonna have to pay him for what? 2 paychecks,
and maybe half and half with Montreal. Maybe
it could
best
very
case
well
scenario
be
for Montreal. Like
could very well be.
Yeah, it's not impossible. It's not nice to say that, but what you're hoping is a lot of injuries on other teams. So guys like Dadonov, guys like Drouin, guys like Monahan. Let's put Anderson in the mix just for but you have to hope that. So like other teams are gonna be like hungry for whoever has experience and whoever scored back in the days or whatever.
Yeah.
So he could be in the mix. Mike Hoffman, if he can continue to score, because whatever happened in the next weeks, if Montreal keeps on winning games, Montreal will not be buyers. And I think it was made clear by Ken Gordon. The plan has not changed. So
Jeff Gordon.
You need Jeff Gordon. So you need these guys to like their value. It has to go up, and hope to get, let's say, a first-round pick for a guy like Ben Chirot last year. That was a gift from the sky.
Look, they
who could imagine?
Yeah, Mapper, they want to do this year with their players. And I get it. The players they have, they're going to end up getting less for these players than they did a year ago. But what they did a year ago in trading Toffoli and in trading Kulak and in trading Lehkonen and in trading Chirot, that's what they want to do this year. They want to trade 4 players before the deadline and try and get some assets and then try and use those assets. It's a sick
and it might hurt.
Yeah, tell me.
I said it might hurt.
Yeah.
Maybe some players will leave that people will be like, oh no, but that's the price to pay.
Who are you talking about?
I don't know. Good defenseman, veteran. I don't know.
David Savard?
I don't know.
Look, I'm going to say this, Mapper, I'll say this if I can. If I'm a team going into the playoffs, right, I would take David Savard on my team.
Of course. And you will pay a lot of let's say money. You'll pay a lot of money for David Savard.
And the guy is it a step further. If I'm a young team and I'm going through a rebuild and a team gives me a good offer, like a first-round pick for David Savard at the deadline, I'm trading David Savard. And I know our buddy doesn't agree with that because our buddy Jean-Charles called David Savard an untouchable, but Jean-Charles is on one of these. He's on, he's on one of these Keep David Savard here.
He's a lover.
You got to get Pierre-Luc Dubois here. Make a change in Ottawa. Bring Patrick Roy. Bring Louis Robitaille. Bring,
he's a dreamer, and that's awesome. And he knows his crap, and he has like more often than the good ideas. But for David Savard, and I hate myself saying that because I love the guy. He's playing probably his best hockey. He's gonna give everything. He is a great leader in that
He
room.
is.
And
He is.
hear so many stories. Oh yeah, and I hear so many stories about David Savard right now. He's the unofficial captain right now. He is just great with the kids. So anyways.
Did you see what our buddy Jean-François Chaumont did of Le Journal de Montréal? He went to Columbus.
I did. I had dinner with him.
Yeah, and he went to do a story on, David Savard and what he meant to the Columbus Blue Jackets when he was there. And I know there were some real kind words from some of his former teammates. I like David Savard. I really, really do like David Savard. Hey, and I like you too. And you were very, very generous with your time. I think I had you on for about 45 minutes. Roger Delaney says, Tony, most of your guests are exceptional. And tonight's guest with hair issues is actually one of the best. All is sick. You don't have hair issues, by the way.
Oh, well, I'm getting older. Sometimes I wake up at night and look in the mirror and, but so far so good.
So every episode we have, there are some people that join along the way. So there are some people watching now who didn't watch a week ago or didn't watch 2 weeks ago. And that's the beauty of a growing podcast, right? Which is kind of cool. So we just want to reiterate, and if you want to, one of your ex-girlfriends, when you didn't know me, used to walk around with a shirt saying, I'm a Tony Marinaro girl. Is that right?
That's true. It is unfortunately true, and
when did you go out with her?
Oh, it's been 6-7 years ago. You see, it's old. It's old stories, and you like to bring it up.
I would have married her I would have married her if I was you.
Oh, trust me, you would. She looked great in that T-shirt, and So I have no choice to say that. At the end of the day, it was a good. It was a good choice.
Yeah, very, very good choice. Merci. Enjoy Columbus. Is the cannon going to go off often tomorrow?
I'm going to say, okay, every time I get to Columbus, but don't tell anyone, okay?
No, nobody's listening right now.
We're on the press box. And when they do the players presentation, after there's that big cannon, so I put my cell phone with the camera on, and I film my colleagues every time. Even if it's the 10th time they're in Columbus, they jump from their seat when the cannonball strikes first. So I'm gonna put the video on my Twitter account, and I assure you that it's at least one guy will jump off his seat. So, anyways, it's always I hate the cannon. By the way,
the only good thing about that cannon is if you go to the game and you had a lot of food earlier in the day and you're a little bit bloated, if you have gas and you want to pass it, you want to the best time is when the cannon goes off. You pass your gas, the person next to you is not going to go.
Yeah, you have to make it fit.
Unless of course it smells like the food that you had earlier in the day. Stay away from the fast food.
The best moments to do that is when the cannon or in a spa, because there's already bubble in the bath. So
and the spa is pretty good too. Hey, have a great night, Mapper.
I'm sorry, I'm tired. Yeah.
No.
Good night, everyone. Thanks for listening.
I love you, buddy. I'm so happy you're on the program. Thank you. All right, okay. There's Marc-André Perreault. This guy, I got to know him. More so, obviously, in the last couple of months here, and I didn't know him all that well. I discovered just a great guy. He's my kind of guy because he's very professional, but he tries to have as much fun as possible. But he keeps he's having a lot of fun, and he's always staying professional at the same time. And he's my kind of guy and my kind of worker. He's really, really good. Really, really nice guy. All right. Okay. I don't know what happened with Aaron Portzline. He and I had communicated with each other tonight, and it looked like he was going to come on. And Daniello and Sammy are telling me that they're trying to get a hold of him, and it's not working. So now I just sent them a note and told him the same thing. We're trying to get a hold of you, and that's okay. Why don't we do this? A shout out, first of all. First and foremost, we'll give a shout out, of course, to Playground. They have over 600 machines, poker tournaments, Playground casino games, daily promotions, and unmatched customer service. Why go anywhere else? Located just over the Mercier Bridge, only minutes from downtown Montreal. Agnello and Sammy back at Master Control. Why don't you bring up a couple of questions, couple of comments? Rems Bergeron. Hey, Tony, what do you think of a line with Xavier Simoneau, Harvey Pinard, and Gallagher? Ooh, I've never thought about this one, actually. Xavier Simoneau, Harvey Pinard, and Gallagher. Okay, well, Harvey Pinard is a young Brendan Gallagher. Whether or not he's going to be able to score 30 goals, the jury is out. It will be tough. Mind you, he is a guy who scored 40 goals in the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League, and he's got 5 goals in 15 games with the Laval Rocket. It definitely works because you got Simoneau at center, you got Harvey Pinard on the left, and you got Gallagher on the right. But when are the Canadiens calling up Simoneau, and when are the Canadiens calling up Harvey Pinard? You would think that if the Canadiens are going to call up a forward, you would think one of the first guys who's going to get a chance is going to be Anthony Richard, who, by the way, I liked in preseason, and he's got 11 goals in 15 games. 11 goals in 15 games. If they're going to call up a forward from the Laval Rocket, it's probably going to be him. Other questions coming in. Felix Duchesne. Tony, I know you talked about it yesterday, but can you talk about Pierre-Luc Dubois and his possible future with the Canadiens? Your podcast is sick, by the way. Oh, thank you very much. Look, I like Dubois. He's obviously a real good hockey player. And you take a look at what's gone on with the Winnipeg Jets and Dubois. The thought out there is that Dubois wants to play for the Montreal Canadiens. He's wanted to play for the Montreal Canadiens probably since the start of his career, and the Canadiens have wanted him to be a Montreal Canadian for a long time, because when the Canadiens traded PK Subban, they wanted to trade PK Subban to the Edmonton Oilers because the Edmonton Oilers had the 4th pick overall in the draft that year, and Austin Matthews went 1 to Toronto. Laine went 2 to Winnipeg, and they thought Puljujarvi was going to go 3 to Columbus. And in the end, Columbus ended up drafting Pierre-Luc Dubois with the 3rd pick. Puljujarvi ended up being 4th. So there was no trade to be done with the Edmonton Oilers. So the old administration, the Marc Bergevin administration, loved Pierre-Luc Dubois. You know, he can play center and he can play wing. And he's got 12 points in 14 games this year, and he had 60 points in 81 games. He would be just what the doctor ordered. He would be absolutely ideal. Good size, too, at 6'2", 205 pounds. But what if Kirby Dach ends up becoming that number 2 centerman? Younger, cheaper, bigger. Better? Not yet. A higher ceiling and more upside? Possibly. Only time will tell. More questions. The fact our defense doesn't generate offense, it will catch up in the next couple of games. Maybe, but they're going to add their best skating defenseman and their best puck-moving defenseman in Michael Matheson as well, who's been missing since the start of the season. So maybe not. Another question. Okay, so at trade deadline, Savard or Edmondson for a first, Allen for a first, and maybe Anderson and Monahan for first. Can you imagine? Your opinion, Tony. I would trade Savard for a first plus. I would trade Edmondson for a first plus. I would trade Jake Allen for a first plus. I would trade Sean Monahan for a first plus. Josh Anderson, you're going to need some players here too next year. You know what I mean? Like, so I don't think there's a rush to trade Josh Anderson. And right now, the way he's playing, if he's not playing his best hockey and his value is not at a high, you're better off. If you're going to trade Josh Anderson, trade him when he starts to turn around and he starts to play better. But I don't think there's a rush to trade Josh Anderson. And I think there's a lot of players before Josh Anderson that you should consider trading and you should end up trading. Let's take maybe another comment. One or two more. And Mr. Major says Dadonov is improving, honestly. He is improving. Pierre-Luc says Savard, I want around. I want him around too. I'm not in a hurry to trade David Savard. I want him around too. Until you're a rebuilding team, you've lost some games, it looks like you're not going to make the playoffs. The more players you trade away, organically, you're going to end up losing more games. And David Savard is going to be 33 when next season starts. And he has a couple of years left on his contract. Once again, there's no rush. You don't have to trade him before this deadline. But you already have 2 first-round picks. Let's say you get a third. Let's say you get a fourth. Let's say you get 3 or 4 first-round picks in the draft. Imagine what you can do with it, the flexibility. Maybe if you're not going to be in the top 5, maybe there's a way of that you end up getting a third or fourth or a fifth pick overall. Listen, it would be hard. I don't see anyone trading a top 3 pick, but maybe you could end up getting a fourth pick. Maybe you could end up getting a fifth pick. And by all accounts, we hear that, there's going to be real good players at number 4 and at number 5. Agnello and Sammy, do we have another one that we can take or what? I don't know why, but I just kind of want to go until 11 o'clock. It's 10:57. And do you think the CH will draft a goalie in the first 3 rounds of 2023? I think the Canadiens, yes, to answer your question, I believe they will draft a goalie in the first 3 rounds of 2023. I believe they will. Mind you, they have a couple in the organization that could end up being pretty good goalies. Folks, if you like the podcast, actually, if you love it, comment SICK, SICK, if you're watching on YouTube, if you're watching on Facebook, if you're watching on Twitter. If you're going to go tomorrow to Google Spotify, or Google Podcast, or Apple Podcast, or Spotify, leave us a 5-star review if you like the podcast. It goes a long way in having this podcast rated accordingly. And we thank you very much for that. You are a sick army. You are a sick crowd. And we're enjoying this, eh? I hope that you're liking this as much as we are. It's fun. It's fun. It's a lot of fun. One more, says Sammy. Sammy says one more. Best podcast, says Kelly. Thank you, Tony. Thank you. Tony, do you see the Habs making the playoffs? Not this year. No, I don't. Kelly says, has Montembeault shown enough to be the everyday starter? Montembeault has been better than Allen this year, in my opinion. He's battled. He's a great story. Montembeault's really improved. He deserves a lot of credit, and so does goalie coach Eric Raymond. We don't talk about him. Speaking of goalies, congratulations to Roberto Luongo and the entire Luongo family on being inducted into the Hockey Hall of Fame. What a huge honor. So amazing for the city of Montreal. So amazing for St. Leonard. So amazing for the minor hockey. His head coach, goalie coach that he had back in the day, Mario Barry, everyone that worked with him. Roberto Luongo had an amazing career. 3 brothers who all played goalie. Roberto being the oldest and obviously the only one to make it to the National Hockey League. I thought his speech was beautiful yesterday when, he talked about how bad he felt that his brothers didn't make it in the National Hockey League, but he kind of shared that award with them. And I thought that was pretty awesome. So congratulations to the entire Luongo family. And if all goes well, who knows? Maybe we can get Roberto Luongo on the podcast. I'm actually pretty confident that we can. I emceed his golf tournament once upon a time. Yeah, I did. I also emceed Andrei Markov's golf tournament once upon a time. Do people know that Andrei Markov smoked? Yeah, like Guy Lafleur. Not as much, and I don't know if he did it during the hockey season, but a couple of players do, and Andrei Markov did, and maybe they just do it off season, right? Maybe they just do it off season. But yeah, I had a chance to MC his golf tournament, and there's a thought. We'll try and get Roberto Luongo on the podcast, but once again, that's awesome to be inducted into the Hockey Hall of Fame. Think about that. It's pretty cool. Markov, such a Habs OG, says Martin do love Markov and others. Tony, you're great on TVA with Jean-Charles. Love that you guys are both passionate. Your podcast is sick as well. Thank you, Tony. This coming in from SLR. Merci beaucoup. Et maintenant, c'est toi. And what does that mean? Well, I use this term in Italian called emosi tu, which means like, here he is. Like, you got to be kidding me. Like, are you serious? And so I went for the translation in French, and I have et maintenant, c'est toi. And there you have it. Someone says Gilbert Perreault fume comme un cheminée. Gilbert Perreault smokes as well. Sergei Zubov smokes packs a day and in between periods. Tony, love the hair. Tony is looking sexy tonight. I have no idea where these are coming from, but man, those are real good for the ego and good for my self-esteem. So thank you very much. On that note, it is 11:02. The Sick Podcast Wednesday edition is now in the books. Special thanks to all of our sponsors, brought to you in part by Energy Transportation Group, as well as 8.6 Beer, and as well as La Cage Restaurants. Thank you to them. Thank you to you. Tell your friends about the podcast. We're trying to grow it slowly but surely. One day at a time, one podcast at a time. Thank you. Bidding you good night. I'm Marinaro.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast with Tony Marinaro on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts. The Sick Podcast is brought to you by Energy Transportation Group, driven to be different, 8.6, intense by nature, and La Cage. If the last time you went to La Cage was when the Habs won the Cup, it's time you went back to La Cage. The menu will surprise you.